Hi everyone, this is Dr. Nitin Choda and welcome to my channel Ignition Time. In this episode of Ignition Time, I'm going to give you a summary of all the current stimulus proposals so far, and I'm going to help you understand what's likely to happen next. I'm going to cover three things in this video. The first is the current state of negotiations between the Democrats and the Republicans. The second is a summary of all the stimulus proposals that have been covered so far. And number three, I'm going to talk to you about what's likely to come next. Now, before I get into all of this, I want you to know that there are many channels, there are many videos, as you know, out there on YouTube on stimulus checks, and almost everyone's talking about stimulus checks. Some individuals are talking about stimulus checks on a daily basis. I'm trying to cover stimulus checks when there's an important and meaningful update. I'm also trying to cover stimulus checks from the point of view of preparing you for a future beyond stimulus checks, because at some point in time, we'll need to stop talking about this stuff. At some point in time, we'll need to go back to the basics. We'll need to become financial adults. We'll need to become financially literate. We'll need to grow up, whether we like it or not. What do I mean by this? And I'm going to give you some hard truths. I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you. If you're relying on a stimulus check for your survival, your financial habits need to be improved. In other words, you need to, once we get through this, I understand that some of us are in a very dire situation. I understand that. I respect that. I've been there. If you look at my introduction video on this channel, you'll see that I went from being homeless to building a life of my dreams, and I talked to you about how I did that in the introduction video of my channel. But let me focus on you right now. If you're focusing on the stimulus check for your very survival, you need to do two things. One, you need to survive and get through this. And number two, you need to now implement some important financial habits. You need to start saving. You need to start investing. And you need to start planning for a better future. And I'll cover that in more detail on my channel. You can check out the other playlists on my channel where I discuss this in more detail. I have the Millionaire Mindset Blueprints playlist on my channel. I have the Economic Recovery Alerts playlist on my channel. I have the Unemployment Benefits Crash Course on my channel that you definitely want to check out. Those videos have helped thousands of people get answers to frequently asked questions and get unemployment benefits. So you definitely want to check that out. I'm telling you all this because my goal with my channel is to give you information that will not only help you survive the present, but build a better future, because you can build a better financial future when you plan several moves ahead. When you see things that other people don't see. Most of us look at what's in front of us right now. But the way to build lasting financial success and happiness is to look beyond what you can see in the present, in the now, and which is why I want to help you build good financial habits going forward. I'll be covering more content like that on my channel in the coming weeks. So please make sure you subscribe to the channel. Make sure you enable notifications so you get an instant update going forward. And also, if you learn something new from this video, please consider clicking the like button. I would really appreciate that. A lot of effort goes into the creation of these videos. So let's talk about the current state of negotiations. The way things stand in our system of government is that you have the House, which is controlled by Democrats. You have the Senate, which is controlled by Republicans, and then you have the president, who's Republican. So in other words, a proposal has to go from the House to the Senate and then signed into law by the president. So essentially, the Democrats cannot get things done without the Republicans, and vice versa. So far, what's happened is that the Democrats have wanted to be very ambitious, very aggressive with the HEROES Act that was actually passed in the House, but that went nowhere. After that, they wanted to significantly expand unemployment benefits. They wanted more stimulus checks to people, and they did pass that law in the House, but it did not go through the Senate, and it didn't go beyond that. Now, the Republicans, on the other hand, in the past wanted to take a wait and watch approach. They wanted the money to essentially make its way through the economy. They wanted to see the numbers coming out. They wanted the states to reopen. But now the tide is turning. Now, the tide is turning primarily because President Trump has signaled his support for the second stimulus package. Now, I've covered this in other training videos. Scripps National News did an interview with President Trump, which I focused on and which became breaking news and which became an important topic on YouTube. And so President Trump did announce that also Republican senators are now starting to see a surge in the outbreak, a surge in the pandemic in their states. Traditionally, Republican states like Texas, like Arizona, have been seeing a surge in cases. In fact, Texas is one of the new epicenters of the pandemic. So you have a situation where things are not going very well. Things are actually getting worse in some states. On top of that, the president is now signaling support for the second stimulus package. And I did cover this in another video. Republican senators have now started to change their tune. So what we can very likely expect is after the 4th of July recess, when they come back, they'll come to some sort of a conclusion, some sort of a consensus. And I would hope, and I would also expect, that there would be more stimulus and there would be some sort of an extension of unemployment benefits. The Republicans want to do something that's a lot more targeted, that helps individuals who need it the most, which does seem to make sense. So let's take a look at a summary of all the proposals that have been thrown around so far. And now keep in mind that I have a separate playlist, which is the stimulus proposals playlist on my channel. I've covered each of these proposals, each one of them, in a significant amount of detail. So if you want to check out those proposals and my analysis of those proposals, if you want to directly link to those proposals on the official Senate, on the official Senator's website, you can absolutely do that as well. So I have covered them in more detail. In this video, my focus is just to give you a quick summary so you understand what numbers have been thrown around. And so hopefully that'll give you a sense of what's likely to happen, because I believe that what will end up happening is going to be some sort of a compromise between the House and the Senate, between the Democrats and the Republicans, between something that's extremely ambitious and something that's extremely conservative, something that's a lot more targeted, because at the end of the day, that compromise is what allows our system of government to function, hopefully helping a majority of our citizens. So let's wait and see what happens. So here's a summary of all the proposals that have been thrown around so far. There's been the extra $1,200 stimulus check that was suggested in the HEROES Act. Now remember, the HEROES Act was passed by the House, but it didn't go anywhere. It definitely didn't go through the Senate, and it has not become law. The HEROES Act in its original form is very unlikely to become law because it's not going to get through a Republican Senate. There was a $2,000 monthly payment through the end of the pandemic that was proposed by Senator Kamala Harris. So that's what she had proposed, a $2,000 a month payment through the end of the pandemic. Very ambitious proposal. And she proposed that. And again, it was just a proposal. As far as I know, it didn't gain too much traction. There was a $2,000 a month proposal also until the pandemic ends. And that was proposed by Senator Ro Khanna. I did cover that in a lot of detail. And you can see that in the stimulus proposals playlist on the channel. Now, there was also a $4,000 temporary travel tax credit. Now, this was proposed by the US Travel Association, and President Trump had actually put forth the idea in the month of May. The idea was to encourage us to travel, specifically travel within the country and try and rejuvenate local economies. So that was a pretty interesting proposal. So it was a $4,000 temporary travel tax credit that was proposed. And one of the ideas that was thrown around was that there would be no stimulus checks for individuals, but there would be significant tax breaks for businesses and corporations, which in turn would facilitate individuals getting back to work and encourage people getting back to work. Now, I don't know how likely that is to work, simply because individuals are unlikely to want to go back to work given the state of the current pandemic. Now, if you don't feel safe, you're simply not going to want to go back to work. And that makes sense. I don't think anyone who feels unsafe or anyone who has an employer who doesn't have conditions that are conducive to safety, whether it's hygiene, whether it's mandating social distancing, if those things don't exist, then I can imagine that the employee would not want to go back to work with the employer. Also, there was a back to work bonus that was proposed by Senator Rob Portman, and he suggested a $450 a week back to work bonus for several weeks to encourage individuals to go back to work. I did also cover that on my channel, so make sure you check that out. In the end, I believe what's likely to happen is some sort of a stimulus package which helps individuals who need it the most. I do believe there will be and there should be restrictions based on how much money you make. And by the way, this was part of the original CARES Act. I do believe there will be some restrictions based on an individual's citizenship status, which is how the original CARES Act was. So I do believe the original framework of the CARES Act will stay intact, but I'm hopeful and I'm confident that there'll be more stimulus checks. There will be more of an ongoing unemployment booster because that is necessary for the survival of a lot of individuals. Now, is that leading to a situation where some individuals are just collecting money on unemployment and playing video games? Absolutely. No system is perfect. In every system, there is always going to be waste. And dare I say it, there's always going to be a little bit of fraud. That is inevitable. That's just the way things are. But the idea here is to help a majority of individuals and I feel hopeful, I feel optimistic that the House and the Senate will see eye to eye and will come up with something that makes sense for the majority of Americans. As soon as something is released, I'll bring it to you. I covered the breaking news story of President Trump announcing his support for a second stimulus package. In fact, he provided a specific timeline, and you can see that video on my channel. And I also covered the breaking news story about Republican senators voicing their specific support for additional stimulus money and saying that it's likely to happen soon. I see things happening after the 4th of July recess. I see something happening before the unemployment booster runs out in the end of July, and I will be the first to report it to you, hopefully with some additional breaking news, with some news that helps you read between the lines, because that is my commitment to you as a subscriber, as a viewer. Thank you so much for watching. Please click subscribe. Please enable notifications so you get instant updates from me about future videos, and also please click the like button because it does help out the YouTube algorithm. Thank you so much. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.